Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey with the JX Fight Club in Shanghai, China. And today we've got a question from our friend Van Pol, who is a practitioner of Krav Maga, and it's something he enjoys, and he had a fairly lengthy question. Um, but it boiled down to, what is your opinion about Krav Maga? Now, I've got some really mixed feelings about Krav Maga because I've met a lot of people who practice what they call Krav Maga who could not fight their way out of a wet paper bag, and I've met a few who actually knew what they were doing. Okay? Now, the thing is, since I've met so many people who train under the banner, under the title of Krav Maga, who frankly suck at fighting, it kind of ruins it for those who do something that, a legitimate martial art. Okay? And and I think that's happened with a lot of martial arts. For example, I started out training in Taekwondo, and I loved Taekwondo when I started out. I mean, Taekwondo, that was my jam, guys. And we trained very seriously. I trained with some very serious athletes. I trained with a former Olympic medalist. And it was a very serious thing to us, and we got really good at the sport of Taekwondo. And when I would run into people who would start talking to me about martial arts, and I'd mention Taekwondo, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. My 5-year-old has a black belt too." I'd be like, "Oh man, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing." So, if you belong to one of those, if you belong to a legitimate Krav Maga organization that teaches, legitimate fighting skills, then respect to you, my friend. Um, but in my experience, I I've met way more bad practitioners, teachers, coaches under the banner of Krav Maga than good ones. Okay, like a lot more. Like people who are just so laughably bad at fighting and the self-defense skills that they profess to teach, that they should be laughed out of their profession. Okay. I told a story in another video about this Krav Maga instructor who actually came to my gym, and after one of my MMA classes, he handed out these rubber knives to my students and says, "Hey, I'm going to teach you guys some Krav Maga." And I was like, "Well, okay, let's see what you got." And so he proceeded to teach some absolute garbage nonsense that is, quite frankly, dangerous. Knife fighting is one of the most dangerous things you can possibly do, and what he taught made it so much more dangerous. Okay, and after the class, he came up to me and he saw that I wasn't impressed with what he was teaching, and he handed me one of these rubber knives and said, "Hey, let's see if you can stab me with this before I can take it away from you." I said, "All right, sure." And so I proceeded to stab him just dozens and dozens and dozens of times while he floundered about trying to get the knife away. And he demanded a redo, and so, we did it 3 more times, and each time I stabbed him like 50 times, and he wasn't able to take the knife away. Now, I'm not a knife fighting expert. I'm not ignorant of it, but I'm not a knife fighting expert. Okay? And every once in a while, I'll play with the rubber knives and hand them out to my students, and when they ask, like, "What about knife fighting?" Right? And you can hand a knife to a completely untrained fighter who doesn't know anything about martial arts, doesn't know anything about knife fighting, and take a martial arts expert and have them try to take that knife away from them. And yeah, 9 times out of 10, they're going to get stabbed several times. Okay, maybe even 10 times out of 10. In fact, with my own students, the least number of times I've been stabbed in this drill is 6. Okay, that's my personal record, being stabbed only 6 times trying to take the knife away. Okay, and that's against a fully resisting opponent. All right. Now this so-called Krav Maga master, specialist, instructor, when he snatched the knife away from me and he said, "Well, let's see if you can take it away from me." Okay? And I took off my shirt not to show off my glistening muscles and my manly chest hair, but rather because, you know, a shirt is a weapon, right? It's the old-fashioned cloak and dagger style of fighting, but without the dagger, right? To catch the blade and redirect it. And so he starts slashing at the shirt because it's out in front, and I tie it up and put him in a shoulder lock, throw him on the floor. He stands back up, demands a redo. I catch the blade and, you know, slash his throat with it and do a couple things like that 3 times, put him on the floor and finish him. And he was mad, and I didn't get stabbed once. And bear in mind, I've done this drill with complete beginners who stabbed me, you know, 6 times or more. And this is the first and only time I've done this drill where I didn't get stabbed at all, and this was against the expert. Okay? So there are a lot of charlatans, you know, professing to teach Krav Maga. So again, if you belong to a Krav Maga school, you know, or any school really, Krav Maga, MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, whatever, check yourself. Be really, really honest about whether or not what you're doing is simply feeding your ego and making you feel special and feel tough, or if it is actually teaching you a real skill set that would allow you to prevail in a fight. Okay? Now, I did have 2 students from Israel, and I told this story before, who were Krav Maga instructors in the Israeli army. And if you're not familiar, for those of you who don't know what Krav Maga is, it originated in Israel. It's basically the hand-to-hand combat method taught in the Israeli army. Okay, comparable to, say, U.S. Army combatives, or really the hand-to-hand combat system any country's military teaches their soldiers. Okay, so I asked my students, 2 guys named Yoav and David, and they were very perplexed when I talked about Krav Maga as self-defense. They were like, what? No, Krav Maga is not self-defense. I was like, really? Because there's like this huge industry in the U.S. built up around Krav Maga for self-defense. And they were just kind of in disbelief, like, what? No, Krav Maga is not self-defense. It's about aggression. Because the way they explained it, what Krav Maga is in the Israeli army is a 2-week training program in basic hand-to-hand combat. And you can't teach somebody how to fight in 2 weeks. You just can't. But what you can teach somebody in 2 weeks is a mindset. And that mindset is be aggressive. Go toward the danger. Be the danger. Instead of following our natural survival instincts and run away when there is danger. Right? Because you send a soldier into a war, their instinct is back away. Oh, there's bullets flying. I don't want to go there. But if you want to win a war, you have to go there. And so that was their job, to instill that mindset. Go toward the danger, be the aggressor. Don't try to be defensive, because a defensive fighter loses a war. An offensive fighter has a chance at winning. Okay? And that was basically the polar opposite of everything every Krav Maga instructor, self-defense instructor I've ever met has ever taught or shown or embodied in their philosophy. Okay? So again, there are a lot of different things flying under the banner of Krav Maga, and a lot of garbage institutions with that name. And again, if your institution is not one of those, if it's a legitimate one, okay, you know, I can appreciate that. I understand that, because again, coming from a traditional martial art where now a black belt in Taekwondo has about as much credence as a Cub Scout badge. Ah, man, because they hand them out to 5-year-olds like candy, just for showing up, and their mom handing out some cash to the instructor. I mean, it's a sad state for martial arts in that regard, when they sell out. So yeah, just be really honest with yourself. Is your school legitimate, or has it sold out? Are you a legitimate practitioner of martial arts? Are you an honest seeker of the truth? Because again, martial arts is nothing more and nothing less than a pursuit of the truth. Does this work or does it not? Will I succeed or will I not? Can I prevail? Can I triumph? Or will I be defeated doing what I have been taught? Thank you for watching. Get out there and train.